Simon, before you'd even met us, what worried you most about building and how did that worry disappear once we started?
Well, the biggest challenge for me was cost, and I had put aside a certain amount of money that I was prepared to pay. And so the big challenge I had was how to find somebody who was going to fit in with the budget that I had.
How did we fit in with the budget that you had?
Well, I think the first thing we did was to look at the overall design that the architects had come up with. You guys costed that out. That came well and truly above what I was hoping. So we went back for an additional conversation about how we might adjust the design. By adjusting the design, it came in within my budget.
No. And that's where the consulting service came in.
Yeah, the consulting service was fantastic because you pay for the service. If it worked, and obviously it did, then that allowed me the confidence to be able to complete the job in a way that I was sort of quite happy with as well.
So initially, we costed it out. It was over budget. Were you confident the project would move forward or were there doubts?
Never had any doubts about the project. The challenge I had was how was it going to work in a way that I was happy with and also fitted the design and fitted the role and the competency that you guys had.
So we gave you the consult. What made you say these are the builders for me when you compared us to others?
I think the detail. The detail was really well spelled out. I knew what the costs were going to be. I was a bit nervous about whether that was actually going to be the final cost, but it turned out that that was the final cost. And so as we articulated all the steps along the way, they'd all been specified right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So it was easy.
So what were the biggest insecurities you were facing at that stage? So at the pre-design stage, we cost estimated it originally at $900,000. What were the biggest uncertainties you faced?
Well, I thought the design that the architects came up with was fantastic, but it had a cathedral ceiling. I've got a beautiful dining room ceiling that I didn't want to lose, and I was going to lose that. And also because you guys suggested that we didn't do the cathedral ceiling, but did a direct split between the old part of the house and the new part of the house, it allowed me to feel as I was going to get an outcome that also kept some of the nice things about the house as well.
So the consult, the turning point. What made you to decide to go with Prem Built Consult, even though it came with that 1% fee?
Oh, I think it was just the competency, certainly talking with you and then subsequently with Mark as well. It was the clarity, the support, and I think also the fact that you worked in well with the architects.
Yeah.
It just made me feel confident that we're heading in the right direction.
What stood out to you during the consult that made it different from what you'd experienced so far?
Well, I've probably been lucky that I'd done a lot of builds in my previous role before I retired, so I sort of knew what I was looking for. I knew approximately what cost per square metre was, and I think anybody going to this probably needs to do their homework before they start costing things out.
Yeah.
So I think understanding the design, I'd seen lots of quantity surveying reports. I sort of knew what I was looking for, and you guys seem to be able to deliver it.
Beautiful. And now ultimately, how did the consult give you more clarity around your project?
I pretty much knew what I was going to get at the end. And so as a result of that, I could visualize how the plans that we had were going to turn into reality. Probably the only thing I hadn't quite factored in, because I'm not very good with space, is working out how big the room, the extension was going to be. It was much bigger than I'd actually imagined it was going to be when I had a look at the plans, because before everything happened, I got out in the backyard and I had tape measures and things like that. But once you put walls in,
Yeah.
something that's...
I do remember the original plan that was obviously over the initial budget that we suggested. That was a bigger floor space. And I think we had that discussion being like, mate, it's quite a big open area. It's fantastic, but is it going to be filled? And that was another reason why scaling that back. And even when we did scale it back, the fact that you can walk in and still be like, oh, wow, this is very generous. When we initially discussed feasibility and came in at the $900,000 estimate, what was your initial reaction?
I was a bit shocked because I wasn't quite expecting that amount of money. So we were, that's why we had to go back as they metaphorically said, back to the drawing board
Yeah.
and revisit it for the cost that I could afford.
Did that moment make you question whether the project will go on or not? Did you
No,
have doubts?
no, I never had any doubts. And the reason I have any doubts is that every build I've done, when you go to the first planning stage, is always more expensive.
Yeah.
Because you've got to go out there and find out, first of all, with a design, is it going to work for the money you've got? And there's no point in actually then cutting back before you've actually found out what the cost is.
100%.
And there's been a number of builds I've done prior to this in my previous job where you'd go out there and it might be $1 million more than you're prepared to pay.
Mm.
Well, then you come back and cut your design accordingly.
Cut the fat.
Yeah.
Love it. Can you paint the picture of day one on site? What instantly told you the project was in good hands?
Oh, it was how quickly the demolition company came in and did their job, and they seemed to be very, very good at what they did. And the speed with which they came in and did the demolition was actually quite remarkable. And it meant then that I could walk around the back of the house and see how big the space was going to be. And I was quite astonished when I saw that.
Was there a wow moment during the build that you still tell your friends about?
Oh, I think I'll come back to the extension out the back when I finally saw the frame up and I saw how big it was going to be. It was really quite amazing, and it's something that still, as people come in, because they can see the extension from the front door, it really is something that almost everybody says,
Yeah.
Oh wow! There's a noise that people make when they
Yeah.
walk through the front door.
100%.
Amazing.
I think it's the extension, but also the highlight windows over the
Yeah.
sliding doors. I think
Yeah.
that's the hero.
And I think part of the inspiration of the design that the architects had was to put the strip of windows across the top. Because I think if that was not there, it would be a bit blander.
Yeah,
And-
100%.
And it brings in the trees. It brings in, so from looking out, you're looking into the garden in a way that captures it almost like a picture.
Yeah, awesome. So can you talk us through how Prem Built reimagined the design to bring the cost down?
The ability that Prem Built has had to go back to the design and look at the split between the old part of the house, the bit that I was wanting to maintain, and the new extension, led it to being a very, very effective join. And that was the best part about it, the reimagining.
How did the suggestion to separate old from new impact the direction of the build?
Oh, I think it made the build work better. I think had we had the original design with the cathedral ceiling, while it looks spectacular, I think it actually would have lost the fundamental warmth of the old part of the house.
Mm.
So the fact that we've been able to match the kitchen, we've been able to get the hallway back into the state it was in probably at when it was first built back in the 1930s, meant that the back of the house didn't clash with the front of the house.
So once we submitted the final price and it came within 1% of the estimate, what did that say to you about Prem Built as a builder?
It gave me confidence, because if that was going to be the cost, then as long as I had my contingency in place, things were going to work out the way I hoped they would.
Did that level of accuracy help build trust in the process?
That level of accuracy gave me a great deal of confidence that we're heading in the right direction. Yep.
So how did we keep you up to date and keep you in the loop so you never had to chase our tail or chase an update?
I think we had a really good agreement that if we had any discussions on site, either you'd send me a confirmation email or vice versa. So that meant that you could track what we'd had conversations about. I could track what we had conversations about. But also the fact that you weren't overly precious about me being on site. So I could bowl up and just see how things were going. I'd always let you know when that was going to occur. But that I think sometimes builders can get a bit overzealous about not letting clients on site. And I just gave me confidence that I could just see what was going on and just have good conversations, not only about the build, but life in general as well.
Which we definitely did do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go back to you here, and I'm going to credit yourself as a client because you weren't overly pushy. You were very respectful of everybody's time, every trade's time. You always opted to come at lunchtime when the trades were having their lunch, so you didn't disrupt them from work. You weren't interfering of the trades, so that was a big credit to yourself. And I feel like your relationship with Mark, is just made the difference as well.
Yeah, and it's probably you probably work with people who aren't experienced with builds, whereas I've been somebody who's had so many different types of builds I've been experienced with, and knowing when you're interfering with the trades and when you've got to give them the space to do their job. I do think that one of the things that Prem Built has got is great subcontractors, because the people that I got to know during the build were also really good people.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very important part of actually completing a job, is having people that are working with your builder who are happy-go-lucky, but highly professional people.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Nah, our subbies are the best. I'll say that 10 times over. Which feature of the home puts the biggest grin on your face, even when you see it now?
Oh, I think the room at the back, the big extension, at about it's the middle of winter now, probably about 5:30 when the lamps go on and the subtle lighting occurs, and get a bit of music playing in the background. It's just a really nice space to be in.
If you could time travel, what advice would you give yourself before starting the build?
I think probably the thing that would have been a really wise thing to do would be to sit down and make sure that all of the documentation that we had, we really worked through closely. And I think the issue we had with going through part of the sewerage, we may not have been able to fix that problem, but I think it just sitting down and working out where all the services went in a more concrete way might have been more helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So how has living in this home changed your life or routines in ways you actually didn't expect? So what are you doing differently with this new house that you've got?
I'm cooking a lot more. And in the time I've been there, it's only been probably a bit over a month that I've been able to fully unpack and get the space working the way I want to. But I've now had 5 people stay, various stages in the last month or so. That's meant I haven't been able to do that for years. And so it's just been nice to be able to host people. I had some friends over last week who popped in after an event we'd been to, and we all sort of sat around the table and chatted for an hour or so. So it's a really, really good space to host other people, and in a way that also means that it's still my space as well.
Builders get a bad rap. Some clients hate their builders at the end. They say it can ruin relationships. What was different in your experience?
I think that the most important thing is building relationships, and that's been my career anyhow. But I think a lot of people go into a build with an idea in their mind, because it's probably the first time they've done it, that it's going to look like this and it's going to happen this way and these things are going to occur. And when that doesn't happen, quite often there's a bit of argy-bargy between the builders and their clients. And I think the most important thing is to sit down and have some guidelines right at the very beginning to work out, how is this all going to work? If there's a dispute, how are you going to resolve it? But not to get too precious about it as well, because unless you're a builder yourself, you're not actually aware of some of the implications of things that builders don't have that much control over. And I think that being prepared to actually listen is a really, really fundamental part of any role that a client has. You can't sort of say, oh, well, I'm just going to totally ignore everything, because you still got to have an idea of what you want and how you're going to go about doing it. But listening to the advice, because You listen to an advice from a doctor, you don't become your own doctor. So why do you become your own builder?
So what's it like now knowing you made the right call with Prem Built, not just for the consult, but also as your builder?
It's affected me in a way that gives me faith in the profession, basically. And I do feel that with what's going on with the press and so on, and like a lot of areas, there's a lot of criticism, but Prem Built gave me a great deal of confidence in the building industry.
So who would you recommend us to? And what's the one-liner you tell them about Prem Built?
I'd recommend you to anybody, basically. But the one piece of advice I give anybody is do your homework, not just what Prem Built gives you, but also have a very, very clear idea on what you want and have a very clear idea that if there's going to be some compromises, what are they going to be before you begin?
So it's a big achievement, just finished building. What does this mean to you now after the whole journey?
Oh, I've got a house that I can live in for the remaining part of my existence on this planet, I hope, until I go into some sort of secure twilight experience. But look, it's always good to have a place that you feel is yours and that you've invested in, not financially, but you've invested in as being something that you feel comfortable with. And I think the most important part of completing a design and completing a build is just feeling as though, yes, that's what I had in the back of my head when I first started, and that's the bonus.
So if someone's planning their dream home and feels unsure about their budget or their design, what would you say to them about Prem Built?
Okay, I'd first of all say lock in everything first. Lock in your tile colours, lock in your paint colours, lock in all of the things. And again, I was happy with the designs the architect came up with, even taps and all those sorts of things, not to go out there and keep making different ideas, because everything that happens with a build, the builders have got to accommodate. And so the more you can actually bed everything down from the start, the better. And therefore, using the advice from Prem Built as well to guide you in that decision making.
So would you recommend, after going through the consults, would you recommend one of your friends to do a consult with us when they have their concept drawings?
Yeah, they'd be dumb if they don't do a consult with their initial design. And the reason for that is if you don't do it and you haven't worked through what the actual costs are going to be, you're going to be very, very challenged financially at the end of the whole process.
So what would you tell someone who's deciding whether to involve their builder in early and potentially have them carry the project all the way through, like you did with Prem Built?
Again, if you're talking in generic building, you've got to make sure that the builder is somebody who is going to deliver what they say they're going to deliver. The thing with Prem Built is they did. So very, very important that if you're going to actually establish something that you're going to be feeling comfortable with, you build a relationship, then make sure that you have confidence in the builder. And the only way you do that is making sure you're planning from the get-go.